in hive cities like Tertian.
We are surrounded! Don't get overrun! Through this door!
For if the Inquisition fails...
So, you want to start Darktide? You want to purge some heretics while listening to a great soundtrack? Warhammer 40k Darktide is a 4-player co-op horde first-person shooter, set in the grimdark Warhammer 40k universe. It follows the same formula as the Great Left 4 Dead series and is a continuation of Vermintide 1 and 2, which were also made by Fatshark. The gameplay consists of 4 players fighting cooperatively against hordes of enemies, interspersed with elite units that have special abilities and even bosses which can take a lot more punishment. The special thing in these games is the AI director, which will spawn hordes or elite units at different parts of the map, depending on what state your team is in or how the current mission is progressing. The game takes place on the Hive world, from the damp Underhive to the Gothic cathedrals of the Spire and even on the outside. You are a reject in the employ of Inquisitor Grendel and are tasked to quell the outbreak of a chaos-infected plague. Before you embark on your crusade to purge some heretics, you need to create a character. First you choose your class: Veteran Sharpshooter, the Ranged Specialist, Zealot, the Melee Damage Dealer, Ogryn, a giant carrying heavy weapons and the only class with access to a shield, and a Psyker, the Spellcaster, range attacks with fireballs and lightning, and a head pop. Each class has one active ability, a bunch of passives, and an aura for your team and specific weapons that are only usable by them. For example, the Veteran gets the Plasma Gun, Power Sword, and shovels. After that, you select the look of your character: hairstyle, tattoos, scars, and so on. Also the height of the character, which you might think is also just cosmetic, but has a minor gameplay impact. And then you need to decide on some minor things regarding your backstory, which are mostly for flavor and won't change anything inside the game. With the exception of choosing Cadia as your home planet, then you will use some different voice lines later in the missions. But if you do, be sure to take the right voice at the end. But don't worry, you can change the look of your character later in the hub area for free. Only your class, gender, backstory and voice selections will be unchangeable. So if you want a new haircut, you can do so at any time. The game will drop you straight into the prologue, after creating your first character. Any more after that and you have the choice to skip it. The prologue functions as a quick tutorial and gets you into the story, but don't expect that quality of storytelling in the main game. Most cutscenes are just your character walking up to another character, getting told you are less shit than before, but still shit now, and get back to work. Repeat 4 to 5 times in different rooms.
Failure to achieve said competence will most likely cause the recruit to die.
You don't look like much. I suggest you raise your game and make a conspicuous effort to prove yourself.
Now get lost.
The story cutscenes will happen every few levels and are the same for every class, so you could just watch them on YouTube. The only thing different will be not seeing your character. Anyway, play the prologue once and then never again. Afterwards you will be dropped into the hub area aboard the Morningstar. In the hub area you can see your character from third person and admire your nice prison jumpsuits or other cosmetics. Scattered around the area are different stations and shops, some of which will unlock after you reach a specific level. Sire Melk's Recursitorium is just a fancy name for weekly tasks. It unlocks at level 11 and is your general finish 15 missions or kill 700 grunts with ranged weapon tasks. But some are weirdly difficult to complete. For example, the pick up scripture task needs that you pick them up. If a squadmate does it, it won't count. And at the moment there's no way to track these tasks in a mission. You have to remember what you need to do or just write them down. Anyway, if you manage to get enough tokens, you can spend them on equipment, either on limited time acquisitions or mystery acquisitions. Mystery is cheaper, but you just get a random item. At the Shrine of the Omnisire, you can upgrade your items or replace a perk on green and better items. For upgrading you need 2 different materials, both are found in missions and enough money to do so. Some things like Rebless and Earn Blessing are not yet available. The Commodore's Vestures is an in-game cash shop, unlocked instantly of course. Here you can buy fancy cosmetics for a character or Aquilas for real money. The Armory Exchange is your item shop, unlocked at level 2. Here you will spend most of your time to get equipment for your character. The selection of available weapons will be random and refresh every 2 hours, so if you don't find anything to your liking, you need to wait. You can also acquire cosmetics here. These are mostly just recolorings of your normal armor and weapons, but you can buy them with in-game money. At the Barber you can modify your character's appearance, meaning you just restart the character creation. You cannot change your class, gender, height or any of the backstory choices. The Psychanium is your practice room. Here you can do the basic or advanced combat training or engage in the Meat Grinder to test your loadout before embarking on a mission. The Meat Grinder will also show you how much damage you deal against specific enemies and their armor. It's a good way to learn how to deal with the big armored Ogryns, for example. So most of the time you will spawn into the area, run to the shop, check if there's something new, and then run to the mission terminal. At the mission terminal, you can choose from the different currently active missions or start a quick play mission. The currently active missions are selected randomly and will refresh after each of their timers tick down. If you can't find a mission to your liking, you only have quick play left, no other choice. The bars above a mission will indicate the difficulty. There are 5 levels. Every level after level 1 has a minimum level to unlock it, but I would advise you not to instantly jump into level 3 or 4 when they unlock. Level 1 is extremely easy, okay to learn the game, but no real challenge. Level 2 can easily be finished by level 1 characters who know what they are doing. With level 3 I would probably advise you to start around level 6 to 8 and level 4 in the late 20s. But if you reach that level you can probably make your own choices. Level 5 is the end game for level 30 characters who had some time to polish their build and equipment. Missions can differentiate in the kind of primary objective or map, the 2 secondary objectives and special conditions. The primary objective is always tied to the same version of a map, meaning some objectives reuse the same map, but you move through it from the other side. So it is possible to see the same layout but on different missions. The structure of all mission types is pretty similar. You slowly start into the mission, fight through a linear level, press some buttons, and at the end you have to complete your objective in a big showdown, most of the time holding out against hordes of enemies till something gets completed. Strike, raid, disruption, repair and espionage objectives are pretty much the same. Either you defend an area and wait till something completes, or you defend an area and need to load stuff into your transporter. Sometimes your progress gets disrupted, you then have to run up to the device and complete a minigame to continue. In some cases you need to destroy the spread of a plague demon, destroy the growths to let the ice spawn and destroy to clear that area. Repeat 2 to 3 times to progress the mission. Assassination missions task you with killing someone. These missions will conclude in a boss battle. The boss in question has a personal shield that needs to be depleted first, and carries a plasma gun or shotgun and a melee weapon. His special abilities will knock you back and destroy your toughness, so watch out when going into close combat. There will also be hordes spawning while fighting the boss, so it's best if 2 always focus on the boss, while the rest clear the hordes as they spawn. You can also just throw grenades into the melee fight as they won't hurt your team. Assassination missions are also the shortest one with around 12 minutes of gameplay. While on investigation missions you have to deploy a servo skull that scans the environment and tasks you to use your OPEX tool to scan several things in the area. You can equip the tool by pressing 4. Right click will show you the direction of the items that need to be scanned. If they are near, they will start a pulse. But be aware, the tool only shows the horizontal position. If you can't find anything at the shown position, try a different floor above or below you. And left click will scan the item in question. After you've scanned everything, you have to interact with the servo skull again to progress further. If you're unsure what needs to be done, Darktide always marks the next step with a small icon. The currently available secondary objectives are to collect grimoires and scriptures. Where these books can be found is randomly chosen at the start of the mission from a pool of possible locations. Check the link in the descriptions for more information. Both books pretty much function the same way. You need to find them on the map, pick them up and carry them to the extraction. They will occupy your inventory slot, so if you picked up a medpack or ammo box, you will drop them when picking up the book. So check beforehand who has space left or use your medpack ammo box right there and pick up the book afterwards. But there are some differences between the 2 books. First, you need to collect 3 scriptures, blocking 3 inventory slots of your squad and only 2 grimoires. And scriptures can be picked up again after the carrier died or you picked up a medpack. Grimoires will be lost for that mission if the carrier dies and can't be exchanged with another item. But the much heavier difference is that grimoires will deplete your health over time and inflict corruption to your health. Picking it up will also remove a big chunk and afterwards just carrying it will deplete it further. Because they inflict corruption damage, you cannot heal it with a dropped medpack. But also a Medi-Station is useless with grimoires. Your health will just jump back to its prior level after a few seconds. But you always have the choice to destroy the grimoire, removing the corruption. So picking up scriptures is fine. With grimoires you really need to finish the mission quickly. And of course, you have to decide if the paltry experience bonus from the secondary objectives is worth the hassle. The third modifier on missions are special conditions. At the moment there are 5 different conditions available. High and low intensity will just spawn more or fewer enemies, raising or lowering the difficulty of the mission respectively. Lights out will turn off all lights on the map, extremely reducing visibility. Check beforehand if your weapon has a flashlight available through its special attack. If you are playing an Ogryn, you don't need to check, none of his weapons have a flashlight. Fog will engulf the map in a grey fog that reduces visibility, so it's somewhat harder to aim at faraway enemies. And pack of dogs will primarily spawn Pox Hounds instead of other special enemies. There are 5 difficulty levels. The higher the difficulty, the more experience and money you will receive at the end of the mission. Increasing difficulty means that the AI director will be more ruthless and the number of enemies will be increased, especially in the case of specials and elites. You will also have fewer wounds the higher the difficulty is, meaning you can only take so many knockdowns till you are dead and need to be rescued. As said before, difficulty 1 is extremely easy. Only really for players who never played Left 4 Dead or Vermintide. Level 2 is a good start if you are new or trying out a new class. Level 3 can be completed by experienced players at low level, but I would advise you to start around level 7 to 10. You completed a few missions and unlocked your first feats by then. Level 4 is a much steeper rise in difficulty than the prior levels. You really need to know what you are doing, and level 5 is the end game, mostly used by level 30 characters who had some time to fine-tune their equipment. If you want, you can start a mission alone. The rest of the slots will be filled with bots. Other players can still join your game while it's running, replacing these bots. There's no way to play the game solely with bots at the moment, but if your game crashes, you have the possibility to reconnect if you are fast enough. On most maps you will find 2 or 3 drops that separate the level and that you need to jump down to progress the mission. You can stay at the top and calmly clear the area below you before the jump, but be aware that the AI will likely spawn special enemies behind you. Not really a problem if you're all together, but if you're the last one at the top and your team already jumped down, you really need to watch out. They cannot climb back up and rescue you from a hound or trapper if you are too far back. Now, there are 4 classes. Each class has access to 1 active ability with a recharge timer, 1 aura that helps your team, 1 grenade and some passive abilities. Furthermore, each class has weapons that are only available to them. The Sharpshooter, Zealot and Psyker also share a bunch of weapons, like lasguns, autoguns, axes and swords. The Ogryn is an exception. He has only access to weapons that suit his size. The maximum level is 30 and you unlock access to new feats every 5 levels. Feats offer some more customization options for a playstyle or just improve something.
The head, the body dies.
The veteran sharpshooter is the range specialist. His primary job is to stay at range and kill elites or enemy shooters quickly, so his team can focus on the hordes. He can carry more ammunition than the rest of the classes and has double the toughness than anyone else. His aura will grant anyone a small amount of ammunition if an elite enemy was killed, and his last passive grants him a 15% more weak spot damage. His active ability will boost his range damage and highlights every elite and special enemy, even through walls. So it is a viable tactic to activate it as soon as you hear the sound of a special, aim where it will show up and quickly dispatch it. The frag grenade is great to deal with hordes. Grenades do no friendly fire damage, so just throw them into the melee to help out your team. Later feats grant you a grenade every few minutes and when you kill an elite. The veteran's special weapons are the plasma gun, power sword and more specialized lasguns. And also a spade. In the beginning it's okay if you take just one of the normal lasguns. They do the job pretty well, albeit with a lot of clicking on your part. Another choice is the autogun, but take one with enough ammunition. Only 14 shots in a magazine is not really that great. Later the bolter is pretty much the best choice for you. It instantly kills enemy shooters and elites don't stand a chance if you pump 4 to 5 shots into them. Even the armored ones get destroyed if you unload on them. And if you ever get cornered you can just clear a horde with full auto. The only drawback is the small ammo pool, so make your shots count. But the recon lasgun and the plasma gun are also noteworthy alternatives. The first is a fast-firing las rifle with a bunch of ammunition, and the plasma gun is a slow-firing splash weapon that's great for anti-armor, but somewhat heavy and a hassle with overheating. Because the ranged weapons are best at dealing with single targets, a sword is probably the best choice for a melee weapon. These are great for dealing with hordes. In the beginning just a normal one, but later the power sword, probably the best melee weapon around. Activating its force speed will give your next 2 hits a massive damage boost, cleaving through hordes like butter and even through armored elites. In general, always try to stay back and deal with shooters and enemy elites, but do not waste ammo on normal enemies, switch to your sword to deal with them. The Zealot Preacher is a close combat damage dealer. Her abilities will either boost the melee damage or increase survivability while doing so. Her aura grants anyone toughness damage reduction and her passive increase her melee attack speed, damage increase by missing health, and grant invulnerability every 90 seconds to a deadly hit. The active ability will propel you forward and guarantees a critical hit for your next attack. It pushes some enemies away, but not nearly the same amount as the Ogryn's ability. The ability will also replenish your toughness, so you can use it either to get into melee quickly with enemy squads, or while in melee and low on toughness to better tank enemy attacks. The ability will also steer you somewhat to a selected enemy. You can choose your target by holding the ability button, but the target will only have a slight red-orange glow around it, so not really that visible while in combat. And she has access to a stun grenade. It deals no damage, but stunned enemies don't fight back and are easy to pick off. The Zealot's special weapons are heavy melee weapons like the two-handed chainsword and thunderhammer, or close combat ranged weapons like the flamer, which is especially useful against hordes of enemies. The combat shotgun also complements the Zealot's playstyle really well, and it's available in the early levels, either to knock down elites to finish them in melee, to clear hordes quickly, or even to shoot faraway snipers. The Zealot also has access to the bolter, albeit with less ammo than a veteran, and the weight of it makes quick switching to it in the heat of battle pretty awful. Her main job is to deal with hordes in melee, rush ranged enemies to hinder them from firing, or to just unload on elites in close combat. Therefore, I would advise you to take a heavy sword and a combat shotgun in the earlier levels, and later change to the heavy eviscerator two-handed chainsword. The thunderhammer is also a good weapon, best used against single targets and maybe in combination with the flamer to clear hordes quickly. The Psyker is the spellcaster in Darktide. Through various staffs he gains the ability to throw fireballs or shoot lightning. These attacks are also not blocked by your teammates and can fully hit enemies behind them. Any psychic attack, either brain burst or attacks with a staff, will generate peril that function as a kind of overheat mechanic. On the other hand, the Psyker does not require ammunition for psychic attacks. If your peril level is at 100% and you cast another spell, your head will explode, dealing damage to enemies around you and of course downing you. Peril will slowly fade by itself if you do not use any further psychic attack, and a little bit faster if your melee weapon is equipped. But you can also hold the reload button while your staff or brain burst is equipped to vent it quicker. The Psyker's active ability will also reduce peril by 50% and push enemies away from him. You can also use it to quickly cancel out of overheating before your head explodes. At the start you only have access to normal ranged and melee weapons, which won't really show you what the Psyker is all about. Around level 6 you can expect to see the first staffs and finally gain. The Psyker's grenade is replaced with Brain Burst, which explodes enemy heads. Best used against heavily armored elites because their armor will be useless against your attack. You can break line of sight if you are locked onto an enemy and are casting the Brain Burst. It will still hit them. So it's a viable tactic to peek around a corner, start it and wait in cover for the kill message. Killing enemies with Brain Burst will also give you a stack of damage boost for a time. So if you want to get the most out of the Psyker, try to Brain Burst every 20 to 30 seconds to keep your damage buff active. And his aura will grant his squad 10% more damage to elite enemies. The Psyker's staffs allow him to play a pretty versatile role. Elite Killer, Horde Clear or Crowd Control are all viable options, depending on your weapon chosen. The Void Staff, or Lightning, is great for crowd control. It stuns even elite enemies, making it easier for a squad to kill them. Flames are good against hordes but have a rather limited range. The Fireball is a good all-around staff, while the AoE Blast is great at lower difficulties, but later will only throw enemies around and not kill them quickly enough. Besides the staves, the Psyker's class weapons are the Saber, a great single target weapon, and the Force Sword. The Force Sword can block ranged attacks and has a high damage special ability that is similar to the Chain Sword. But be aware, the Force Sword will also generate peril.
There's something horrible in the dark. Me.
The towering Ogryn is primarily a support tank that defends or blocks and can greatly stagger enemy hordes. But with the right equipment he can also function as a heavy weapons platform. He has 300 hit points instead of the normal 100 and his aura grants 10% heavy melee attack damage to anyone in his squad. The other passives help him to better tank damage, stagger enemies more easily, and he can't be interrupted while reviving. His active ability is a charge forward that pushes enemies away and knocks them prone. Best used to reach down teammates or to stun specials like the Mutant. The Ogryn throws a box of grenades that do not explode, but just deal massive damage from the force of impact to a single enemy. He is also the only class to wield a shield which blocks ranged damage. Using the shield's special ability will let you plant it in the ground, removing the stamina cost of blocking but fixing you to your position. Your job as an Ogryn is crowd control, staggering hordes and enemy elites so that they are unable to deal damage to a team and are easily killed. The second task is to clear the way to down teammates or create some breathing room if your squad is threatened to be overwhelmed. Due to his increased strength, the Ogryn can also carry batteries and objectives much faster than the rest of the classes. All of the Ogryn's weapons are unique to him, he doesn't share anything with the rest. Most notable besides the shields are the rocket gauntlets, allowing you to fire a grenade or using it to rocket punch in close quarters, and the heavy stubber, a heavy machine gun that lacks accuracy but is great against hordes or to suppress enemy shooters. And for melee weapons, the new Power Maul is a great choice. Good amount of stagger on hit and also can deal a nice amount of damage with the activated special ability. Every character can carry a melee and a ranged weapon. At higher levels, 3 slots for Curios will be unlocked. These grant you different stat boosts like more health or extra experience. New weapon types will be unlocked for your character as you level up. These can also include weapons from the same category, meaning there are multiple swords, each with a slightly different moveset. So when buying a new weapon, be sure to check the moveset in the menu. In the beginning, just take the weapon with the highest gear score when leveling up, that has a moveset that you like. If you plan to further upgrade the weapon, take a closer look at its base value, seen here. The higher the value, the better the upgraded version, so maybe a grey weapon without any bonuses may be the best choice for that. But the base value is only a combination of its base stats, so 2 weapons with the same base value may have completely different stats. Just be aware of that when deciding to fully upgrade a weapon. But only really upgrade at level 30, before that it's not really necessary. And items come in 5 different rarities. Grey with no bonus, green, blue, purple and orange at its highest. The higher the rarity, the more bonuses are unlocked. Swords are great for fighting against hordes, axes are mostly single target and can pierce armor easily, knives are quick and deal heavy single target damage, and blunt weapons are great at staggering enemies. The chain sword and chain axes are somewhat like the normal counterparts but have the ability to switch on, dealing heavy damage to a single target and sticking you to it till the attack is done. So only use it against harder enemies that need the extra damage or you will be open to attacks. Power weapons also behave like a normal weapon till you turn them on. Afterwards, the next attack deals massive damage and can even generate a small explosion. In the beginning, it's probably best if you try try to get curious with bonus experience or extra money. Later, wounds and maximum health are more important, especially if you want to play difficulty 4 or 5. You can inspect every weapon to get a bunch of information. At the top right is a moveset, and if you hover over any of the stats at the bottom you get even more information. Ranged weapons which are available to the 3 classes are autoguns, lasguns and a shotgun. The white bar is your health. The division shows how many wounds you can sustain. Some equipment will boost that number. Every time you get downed, a wound will be used. Your wounds can be blocked by corruption, the purple stuff. Corruption can be received through taking damage, dying or carrying a grimoire. Medi-Stations will heal corruption, except in the case of carrying a grimoire, and drop medpacks will not heal corrupted bars. If you're on your last wound and get downed, your character will die instantly and skip the down status. So be aware if you're on your last and try to find items that increase your wound. Higher difficulties will also reduce the amount of wounds available to you, so it's imperative that you equip Curious with extra wounds if you plan to play difficulty 4 or 5. The light blue bar above that is your Toughness, a kind of armor that regenerates if you are near your squad, as shown with this icon here. The more of your squad that are near, the higher the regeneration rate, so stick together. Another way to regain Toughness is to attack enemies in melee. Every hit will give you a small amount of Toughness back. Ranged attacks will be completely blocked by Toughness as long as it's present, but on melee attacks, Toughness will only block all damage if it's full. The lower the Toughness, the more damage will be let through and reduce your health. Some attacks, especially flames, will deplete Toughness almost instantly. When you start sprinting or block with a melee weapon, your stamina bar will be visible. Running will deplete your stamina and only refill if you start walking again. Blocking attacks or pushing enemies will also deplete your stamina. How often you can block or push depends on your weapon choice. If your stamina reaches 0, you can still perform these actions, but not as good as before. To regain stamina, just don't use anything that drains it. Above that you can find your squad mates. Same idea with health and toughness, but you can also see how much ammunition and grenades they have left. So if most of your team has yellow or red icons, it would be a good idea to drop your ammo box. A third icon will show up if one of your squad carries a medpack, ammo box or even a scripture grimoire themselves. Above that are the class icons, pretty small and not that readable, also the color is randomly assigned at the start of the mission. In the middle you can find your class buffs. If you want to know what each does, check your feed screen. And on the right are your weapons and if filled, your inventory slot item. Pressing the middle mouse button while aiming at elite and special enemies will highlight them. Always do this so you can better spot them inside hordes and your squad is aware of them. If you hold down the middle mouse button, a wheel menu opens up where you can mark places on the ground, ask for ammunition or just say thanks. A hit indicator shows up if you hit an enemy, white if you successfully hit an enemy and dealt damage, yellow if you made a critical hit like a headshot, killing an enemy will turn it red, and a blue indicator shows that no damage was dealt, for example against shielded Ogryns. Always keep these colors in mind so that you do not waste ammo or to better learn the critical hit zones of enemies. If your health reaches 0 and you have a wound left, you are knocked down. The same happens if you jump over a railing or get thrown off the map and are still close enough to grab on. Your health bar will change to red and continuously tick down. Any damage you receive will hasten the process. A teammate can pick you up again, healing you fully except one additional wound will gain corruption. If you get downed while only having one wound left, you will die instantly, dropping any inventory item except the grimoire and starting a rescue timer. When the timer reaches 0, your squad mates can pick you up somewhere on the map where you will be held prisoner by some enemies. You can see each other through the walls, so it's pretty easy to find them. If you're on the last big battle of the map, you will probably spawn right around the corner or even in the same room. If you hold block while reviving someone, you will block incoming melee attacks. If you receive any health damage while reviving, it will cancel the process. The exception is the Ogryn, who has a special passive that allows him to do so anyway. So clear the area somewhat before attempting to revive someone, or just throw a grenade at them, giving you enough time. There is no friendly fire damage, but some weapons will be blocked by your teammates and not deal the full damage, if any at all, to enemies behind them. Exceptions are the Flamer and the Psyker staff attacks, which go right through your teammates. Every character can sprint for 8 seconds. You regain stamina if you let go of the sprint button and start walking. It is possible to slide while sprinting by pressing crouch. Sliding allows you to get faster into cover and sometimes slide below enemy ranged fire. You can dodge by pressing jump while strafing left or right or moving backwards. You can nearly dodge all enemy attacks if you time it right, but it is on a small cooldown and some weapons have a dodge cap that limits the amount you can fully dodge in a row. To work around it, just implement some attacks or pushes into your dodges. Melee combat is the bread and butter in Darktide. Each weapon type has different attack combos that you can see while inspecting it. Clicking once makes a normal attack, clicking quickly afterwards starts the combo. Some weapons have different attack type for the first attack. With these it can be beneficial to wait after the first attack and not start the combo against some enemies. Holding the mouse button winds up a heavy attack that can also be comboed. Every weapon has also a special attack, sometimes these are essential in the case of the power sword and sometimes you just punch with your fist. Holding right click blocks enemy melee attacks, stamina will only be drained if you blocked an attack. How much depends on the attack, and you only regenerate stamina if you release the block again. It is possible to block without stamina, but you will be vulnerable afterwards. You can still move and dodge while blocking, and ranged attacks can't be blocked, except with a shield or the force sword. While holding block, you can do a push that staggers enemies and gives you a little breathing room. Push multiple times in a quick succession to knock enemies prone, but be aware that not all enemies can be pushed around, especially if you're not playing the Ogryn. A push will also reduce your stamina. If you hold down the attack button after a push, you will make a quick push attack. These are great to safely thin out hordes, even more so on the harder difficulties. Okay, so in general, while fighting melee, it is always a good idea to keep moving, either strafing or dodging the whole time after you're attacked. Standing still and just whacking the enemy makes it easy for them to hit you. Just before an enemy attacks you from behind, you will hear a whoosh sound. Quickly dodge when you hear it and the enemy will miss. With ranged weapons it's even easier if you ever played a shooter. Left click fires, right click enters aim down sight or braces the weapon. Ranged weapons also have a special ability, but these are most often pretty useless. Weak pushes, switching on a flashlight and so on. But there's also a suppression mechanic. If enemy ranged units are firing at you, you will start to get suppressed. Suppression makes aiming your ranged weapon a lot harder and reduces your movement speed. Quickly look for cover and deal with the ranged enemies. But you can also suppress your enemies. They will take cover if you fire near them, make it easier to close the gap and kill them in melee. Scattered around the maps you will find different pickups. Normally ammunition in small or big packages, crafting materials or deployable med packs and ammo boxes, either in yellow boxes, which are sometimes empty, or just lying around. The med packs and ammo boxes both take up an inventory slot, and are in competition with a Grimoire or Scripture, so you can only carry one of these. Both can be deployed either to fill your squad's ammo when they interact with it, or healing them slowly over time when they stay near it. If you deploy one of them, be sure to mark the position with the emote wheel so your squad does not miss them. And materials are shared loot. Everyone will get them if someone picks them up. At fixed points on the map you can find Medi-Stations. These will heal you fully except corruption from a Grimoire. Medi-Station can be used a maximum of 4 times, as shown by the blue lights at the front. Not all Medi-Stations will have 4 heals available, some might even just have 1, so check beforehand if someone needs it more than you. But you can even use them multiple times yourself if you get hurt again. And sometimes the stations will be offline, needing a battery to function. These can be found in the area around it, just carry them back and slot them in. There are 3 kinds of armoring: unarmored, flag and carapace. Each will absorb damage differently. Use the meat grinder feature to test out how your chosen weapons perform against the different armors. Infested and unarmored poxwalkers are the enemies that you will most often encounter. Extremely easy to kill and just cannon fodder. Only really dangerous if they attack you in a horde and deplete your resources while elites or specials are flanking you. Every time a horde is spawned you can hear the following sound. Get ready to fight and look for a choke point to tunnel them through. The best weapons against them are explosives, flamers and cleaving melee weapons like a sword. There are also some enemies that can be part of hordes, but more than likely can be found running around as squads. For melee, there are the scab and drag variants. One has flag armor on the chest, the other only on the head. These die pretty quickly to any attack, but the normal ranged enemies can be a little bit harder to deal with, especially if they all focus fire on one player. Either suppress them and pick them off one by one, or force them into melee, where they can't suppress you back and are a lot easier to deal with. Elites are stronger variants of normal enemies. Most of them are already spawned when you start the mission and are interspersed into groups of normal enemies. But there are cases where they will be spawned to flank you, just far less than the specialists. Maulers are heavily armored 2-hand axe-wielding juggernauts. They move pretty slowly, but if an attack manages to hit you, deal a great amount of damage. Best keep your distance and try close quarter ranged weapons or quickly attack and dodge out of the way. It can take a while to kill them if you do not have any armor-piercing weapons, but it is possible to stagger them with enough force. Headshots without the right weapons are also not as effective as body shots. The head is protected with carapace armor, while the body only has flag armor. Ragers are melee damage dealers that quickly rush you and start a nearly never-ending melee attack combo. Try to block and dodge backwards to gain distance and then shoot them in the head. The Ogryn is also able to knock them around or even prone. Do not get cornered by them or you will likely not survive. The difference between the Scab and the Drag Rager are their protections. The Scab is fully flag armored, the Drag has no armor. The Drag and Scab gunners behave the same way. They try to keep distance to set up their machine gun and force you into suppression. Best take them out quickly with a well-placed headshot or rush them in melee. Both have flag armor at the chest. The only difference is their head protection. The Scab gunner has a better helmet with flag armor, the Drag gunner has no armor at the head. With shotgunners it's the same. Drag has no helmet, Scab has a helmet. But these want to engage you in medium to close combat to best fire their weapons. It is extremely dangerous to rush them in melee from a distance, as they can quickly fire at you and drain your toughness or even kill you outright. So best take them out at a distance or run to them if you are really close. Enemy Ogryns come in a few variants. There's the heavy weapon carrying Reaper, which is only a threat at range, so best rush him before he can deploy his weapon and stagger or circle strafe him till he's dead. Bulwark or Shield Ogryn can be extremely annoying. If you have his aggro, try to position yourself so that your team can fire at his back. With a heavy enough attack or grenade, it's also possible to knock his shield away for a moment. If you happen to engage him alone and have no access to a grenade, Try to circle strafe him or attack while he winds up his attack. The Armored Crusher is fully encased in carapace armor that can withstand all non-armor piercing attacks. You can manage to knock him down with a well-placed grenade, which makes dealing with him a lot easier. Other than that, just hope you have some armor-piercing weapons in your squad. Specials are enemies with different abilities that will try to disable or otherwise hinder your squad from making progress. They will spawn into the mission and make themselves known through a specific sound cue, the exception is the sniper. Most of the time these will engage your squad from behind, so if you hear any of their telltale sounds, be ready to quickly dispatch them. The Mutant or Charger will choose one of your squad and run straight at them, even if another player is in the way. He will then pick up the player, slam him a few times and throw him away. Most of the time just a few meters, but it can happen that he throws you off a platform and you are downed instantly. After he has thrown someone, he will continue to charge the nearest player and try to grab him. It is possible to dodge the Mutant if you time it right. Right before he picks you up, he will raise his arm, dodge to left or right. If successfully dodged, the Mutant will be stunned for a few seconds. The Pox Hound is a disabler that will pounce onto a player and pin them while dealing damage. The player is not able to free himself and needs the help of a teammate. The damage it deals is pretty minor, but can still add up quickly. So if you hear the Pox Hound, stay near your teammates. It is possible to push the pouncing hound while he is jumping, enabling an easy kill. The trapper talks to herself when approaching and will shoot an electric net that will trap you. She's a disabler similar to the Pox Hound. The net does not deal any real damage and just binds you, and she can fire through other enemies. So if you are fighting a horde and hear the trapper firing, you should get ready to dodge. In contrast to the hound, the trapper can trap multiple players. You can also dodge the net if you time it right. Wait for the sound of a gun to better time it.
Data interrogation.
The Pox Blaster is a suicide bomber that deals heavy damage. It emanates a clicking sound that gets louder and faster the closer it is to your squad. If you kill the Pox Blaster, he will still explode, so try to dispatch him from a long range. You can also push him to the ground and dodge backwards. The sniper is the only special who will not play a sound cue when he spawns, but you can spot him by his laser pointer. He deals massive amounts of damage if he hits you. As soon as you enter his field of view, he will take aim, and just before the sniper fires you can hear a loud sound. With the correct timing and strafing left or right, it is possible to dodge his shot. The easiest way to deal with him is just to shoot him, as he can only take a few hits. Spot him beforehand to have an easier time hitting him. The Flamer makes a clicking sound and will most likely spawn near you to use his short range to best effect. If you're hit by the flames, your toughness will be burned completely, so best keep your distance and shoot him before he can fire. The bomber throws grenades that burst into flames that destroy your toughness instantly if you stay in the fire. Every time you hear a fast, high-pitched beeping sound and see the pulsating grenade coming at you, move from your position. The bomber will try to stay at range and behind cover, moving away from you if his attack misses. So to kill him you have to pursue him somewhat. Monstrosities or bosses are bigger enemies with a separate health bar. These will not spawn at the end of missions, but rather randomly throughout the map. At the moment there are the Plague Ogryn, Beast of Nurgle and the Daemonhost. The Beast of Nurgle will spit a yellow slime that slows your movement speed if you run into it and tries to engage you in melee. It has a weak spot in the middle of the back, the big yellow bulb. Shoot it to deal more damage. Avoid attacking it in melee if you have the aggro, because it will swallow you if you get too close. The beast can only swallow one player at a time and will spit them back out after a while. If you have the aggro, just start running in circles so your team can shoot it in the back. When it dies, it will explode and deal some damage and knock you back. The Plague Ogryn is pretty straightforward. It will rush players in melee and attack whoever dealt the most damage at the time. Try to back away and block its attack if you have the aggro, and engage if someone else is the target for the moment. And try to aim for the head to defeat it more quickly. Daemonhosts are terrifying enemies that will wreck your party if you disturb them. Luckily, they will spawn in an idle state. Idle Daemonhosts will talk to themselves and are engulfed by fog. Be careful if you hear it or see the fog and try to spot the Daemonhost as soon as possible to warn your team. You can sneak by them if you crouch or walk. Melee attacks near them will also not wake them up. Running, shooting or anything that makes a loud sound will start to wake them up, as does shining a flashlight at them. The more woken up the hosts are, the more they will start to float off the ground. If the Daemonhost wakes up, he will instantly start attacking the player who did it, and will not let up till it or its target is dead. If you are lucky, he will only kill 2 players and disappear. One possible tactic to safely defeat a Daemonhost is to have a shield Ogryn in your squad. If the Ogryn uses a shield's special ability, he can block all damage the Daemonhost deals and gives your squad time to kill it.
It is